Lost media is a pretty interesting thing, especially when it has to do with franchises and or properties that you already care about. But even beyond that, things like unaired pilots and concept art is just such an interesting thing to go through. I mean, did you know that Timmy Turner was supposed to have a blue hat? It goes without saying that a lot of ideas have to be tossed around before we get the final product. Not all of them are good, and some of them are extremely different from what we end up getting. Sometimes within the production of a show, the entire audience they're aiming their show towards completely changes. Apparently, the Powerpuff Girls were supposed to be called the Whoop-Ass Girls. God damn. The early 2000s Scooby-Doo films were supposed to be rated R. Wait, that one actually makes a little too much sense. Sometimes things might need a change in pre-production due to copyright. That's why Jimmy Neutron's called Jimmy Neutron and not Johnny Quasar. I mean, Phineas and Ferb's creators came up with the characters back in the 90s. Things can be in production for a long time before they actually end up getting made. So, I draw a lot of cartoon characters, and so I end up having to go and look at images a lot. And I always end up seeing these pictures when I Google Ben 10 characters. And I never really thought anything about it, because it's like, oh, well, these must just be some old Photoshops from back in 2008 or some shit. People did seem to have a weird obsession of Photoshop and Alien Force clothing onto the original characters back then, so I'm like, oh, it must have been that. But earlier this year, a few model sheets surfaced. They're going to be linked down below. This was actually found by a Ben 10 archiver. A full 5-second clip of the original, I guess, designs for Ben and Gwen. Which, god damn it, these are just not it. Yeah, I know that this isn't technically lost media, but it is still concept media, and it's pretty interesting. Apparently, the Fairly Odd Parents had, a proxy season before the show actually came out back in the 90s, or late 90s, 1998. There seems to be some pretty substantial changes from what we ended up getting in 2001. Whilst the overall premise seems to be more or less the same, a few of the characterizations are a bit different. For example, Cosmo's pretty smart in this version, and if anything, Wanda's the illogical one. Timmy's parents' faces are never shown. I'm pretty sure that their faces were designed by fans who won a contest or something. Yeah, but don't quote me on that. Also, Vicky references that she has a little brother, which never appears in the actual series. And no, before anybody cracks a joke about Tootie getting a sex change, she's literally in this pilot too. So, I don't really have much to say about this one, but Sonic X had a pilot that actually looks pretty much the same as what we ended up getting. For example, this scene right here, yeah, it appears in the actual show, but there's humans and not other animals. Most versions of Sonic the Hedgehog seem to have Sonic exist in a world with other anthropomorphic animals just running around. Think Sonic SatAM or even Underground. But Sonic X did end up doing something different where Sonic was transported to the human world. So, apparently this means that Sonic coming to the human world was a later addition. And I just had a terrible realization. Is Chris supposed to be the human version of Tails? I mean, oh my god. He's supposed to be the human version of Tails, isn't he? Because now it seems kind of redundant to have him play pretty much the exact same role as Tails. But, Chris tangent aside, you might recognize some of this footage because it was used in the theme song. I really liked Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a kid, and when I got back into it around 2017 when I was 13, 14, watching the original series and getting into a few of the spin-offs, and even watching YouTubers like Little Karibo. I may have watched a little too much Little Karibo, though. I ended up learning about Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, which was everything a 13-year-old edgy me would love. Except, wait, it was only subbed. Yeah, there was no dub of this. And to this day, this is probably the only subbed anime I have ever watched. And to explain what Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 is, well, you're gonna have to buckle up. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters was actually the second anime and was kind of a soft reboot. Because it does retread a lot of storylines from Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, but also goes way further into plots that Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 never got into because Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 only ever lasted one season. Because it was kind of a failure. Now you might say, what's the hype around this? What's so different about this version of Yu-Gi-Oh? Joey complaining about porn? No, that actually happens. Oh yeah, Yugi also sets a guy on fire. Also throws people off buildings. And for some reason there's this blue-haired girl who's just hanging with them. I don't remember her from Duel Monsters. Oh, wait, she's from the manga. This show was mad dark and even gave me goosebumps as, what, an 8th grader watching this? I would love to see 4Kids dub this. And my last choice is a show that actually got canceled and never was made. I remember part of this show leaking or something. I even remember making a video about it years ago on my old channel. At some point, Disney and Fox were working out FX shows or something like that, and I think Legion was one of the shows that came out of that, and another one, but I don't give a damn about those shows. Disney was essentially working with Fox so that they could get rights to use characters like Ego the Living Planet for Guardians 2. So it was just some weird partnership thing, but then Disney decided to buy Fox, which meant that they didn't have to be nice to them anymore, because they owned them. This meant that a bunch of Fox things got cancelled. With Kevin Feige becoming the head of the entirety of Marvel, including TV, there had to be a bunch of reshuffling. A bunch of shows that were made actually never ended up airing. In the case of Hellstrom, it had his entire Marvel identity essentially ripped from it and was just marketed as some lame show that had nothing to do with superheroes or Marvel. In the case of shows like Hitmonkey and MODOK, they actually did get a release. The reason I bring up this Deadpool show is because if fans show enough support, it could probably still get made.